The body of Christ connection to Benjamin. Romans 11:13, the Apostle Paul writes, "For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify mine office." Philippians 3:5, circumcised the 8th day of the stock of Israel of the tribe of Benjamin, and Hebrew of the Hebrews, as touching the law of Pharisee. This is the Apostle Paul. He is from the tribe of Benjamin, and the connection with Benjamin and the rapture goes all the way back to Genesis and the book of Kings with Elijah, because Elijah is from Benjamin also. Here it is. What tribe was Elijah from? KJV. Ancestry and family life. Elijah was a Tishbite from Gilead. He was a Benjamite, son of Jeroham. 1 Chronicles 8:27. The tribe of Benjamin produced several heroes and mighty warriors. This is all connected to us in the body of Christ and the rapture, because Elijah was raptured and they looked for him for 3 days, which is symbolic of 3 years, which is 2026, 27, and 28. The 3 years in the Strong's Concordance that say that those years are going to be full of slaughter and blind people. Okay, because we get raptured in either 25 or 24. And this goes to Genesis chapter 45, the tribe of Benjamin. This is chapter 45, KJV. Then Joseph, we know Joseph is type and shadow of Jesus, could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him. And he cried. That's the midnight cry in Matthew chapter 25. And we are in Genesis chapter 45, which is 20 plus 25. 2025. The rapture of the wise. Cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. See that? And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. That is the midnight cry that the whole world will hear. The Egyptians, that's the world. Verse 3, And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph, doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Remember, Joseph is a type and shadow of Jesus. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. You see how he was sent? For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land. And yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. This is 2 years into the 7-year famine. That would be 2024 or 2025, depending on where you start the 7-year Shemitah. We're looking at patterns. And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity in the earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. See that? So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God, and he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and Lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. You see that? That matches up spiritually with Colossians, I believe it's chapter 2, where Jesus triumphed over all through the cross. Verse 9, Hast ye, and go up to my father. You see that? Just like in Passover, where you meet the man with the pitcher, and then go up to the father's house. And say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, Jesus, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not. Again, the 5 years, the last 5 years from the 7 years, that would end it at about 2029, 2030, Agenda 2030. And behold your eyes, see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that is my mouth that speaketh unto you. Benjamin, you see that? And ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that ye have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept. And Benjamin wept upon his neck. That's a picture of us, the body of Christ and Jesus, the dispensation of grace, okay? Moreover, he kissed all his brethren and wept upon them, and after that his brethren talked with him. So you see all of this Benjamin connection. Elijah is from the tribe of Benjamin. The Apostle Paul is the apostle of the Gentiles, and he was from the tribe of Benjamin. And it goes all the way back to the beginning, Genesis chapter 45, where Benjamin, which is the youngest, which is the body of Christ, the youngest, we are not the firstborn, we are adopted into the body of Christ, we are the youngest, the Benjamin connection, the great deliverance, chapter 45 of Genesis, which is 20 plus 25, 2025. Or 2024, I'm not a stickler. I know it's not past 25, though. And Benjamin made 5 times more the mess than all the rest. 5 is the number for grace. And the timing at which Benjamin made 5 times more the mess was before they came down. So, I wonder sometimes, is that a heavenly picture of before we were here? When we were with God, if that was the case. A lot of people kind of see that in the Bible, that we were possibly with God before this. And that kind of, when we came down here, it's almost like a picture of the boy who fell asleep and fell out the window in the book of Acts, I believe it was. So picture of us falling asleep and then coming down here and dying because, once we hit the age of accountability, then we're dead in sin and held accountable. And then the Apostle Paul, who would be a type and shadow of Jesus, brings him back to life through the power of God. And he's alive again and he goes back up. So I see kind of possibly maybe that's a picture of us when we come down here. We fell asleep or some type of way we came down here, we're fallen. And then we're dead in sin until we get revived by God, and we go back up. We go back home. We're called ambassadors. So an ambassador, you're in a foreign land, but you came from your homeland, which would be heaven. So we came from our homeland. We're here being ambassadors, and we go back. So it's just another possibility I see in these stories, because what these stories are in the physical, earthly stories in the Old Testament. They're showing us much larger spiritual truths and how we can see the bigger picture of things. Just like in Genesis chapter 45, which is 20 plus 25, you see a great deliverance. You see Benjamin as the youngest. You see Benjamin making 5 times more the mess in Genesis chapter 43. So these are all clues for God declaring the end from the beginning. Isaiah 46:10. I just wanted to show you guys that the Benjamin connection to the body of Christ, definitely there. Okay, so I got to cover something so that I don't confuse people with my last video and this video. And we're going to the pattern of 2 years into the famine, there was a great deliverance. Genesis chapter 45, I just went over all that. So 2 years into the famine, the 7-year famine would be where? Well, it would be in 2024, 2025 if we started the 7-year pattern in 2022, 2023, which most people are, because that is the beginning of the Shemitah, the 7-year cycle that is talked about through the Bible that takes you to 2029, 2030. And yes, that's where I would start the 2 years of famine, 2022, 2023, in the beginning of the Shemitah. And 2 years in takes you to 2024, 2025, great deliverance, what we call the rapture or harpazo. Definitely, I use that for that pattern 100%. Because that is the Shemitah. And the Shemitah is, in the Old Testament, it's a agricultural cycle. And again, we're the barley harvest, and after that there's a wheat harvest. So it is likened to the agricultural cycle. So yes, I would use the Shemitah for that pattern, the great deliverance 2 years in to the famine. That takes us directly to 24, 25. Yes. Now, the reason that I'm making clarification is because my last video, I said one of the ways that I'm looking at the last days also is starting the last 7 years at 2024, 2025, which takes you to 2032, 2033. And the reason that I just pointed this pattern out, this is just a pattern, is because when we look at the 6,000 year prophecy in Genesis chapter 6, verse 3, there's 120 jubilees, okay? 120 times 50, because 50 is the amount of years in one jubilee. 120 times 50, 6,000 year prophecy. From the fall of Adam to 6,000 years later. 6 is the number for man, okay? And it says that for 6,000 years, man's spirit and God's spirit will be contending. And this is shown to us in a picture with Jacob wrestling with the angel of the Lord, which was actually God, because it was Jesus. He says, I saw the face of God. So when God manifests himself here on earth, it's as the Son. Okay, so no man has seen the face of God, but that means in his original form in heaven. So that's different. But again, my point is that Jacob wrestling with the angel of the Lord is a picture of the 6,000 years, man, flesh and blood, wrestling with God. Right? That's Genesis 6:3. 6,000 years. So when you start from the fall of Adam, 33, 6,000 years later is 2033, 32. So technically that 6,000 year period, the 120 jubilees, would end in 2032, 2033. Not 2029 and 2030. However, 2029 and 2030 are when Christ comes back, what we call the second coming. So this Shemitah, the 7-year cycle, which starts in 22, 23, goes to 29, 30, is in use, okay? And this is ancient, okay? But the only thing I pointed out the other day is to fulfill the 6,000 year prophecy, 2032, 33, you would start from 24 and 25, which will be around the rapture, and take it 7 years in. It's not the Shemitah, because you land in the middle of the Shemitahs. In the middle of this one and in the middle of the next Shemitah, which to me I see the new moon and the full moon, because they land in the middle of the months, right? But it's just another pattern that I see. There's more than one dimensions to the Bible. There's more than one ways to look at all of these patterns in the Bible. Like the book of Revelation. In fact, the whole Bible, it's almost layered on top of each other. It's almost like this dimensional thing that's all connected. Okay, and you're just trying to unravel it, and God will unravel it for you as time progresses. You know, even Jesus, it says, when he came into bodily form, it says that he grew in stature and wisdom. So he was learning. You know, everybody, when they come into this body, you have to learn. So again, I just wanted to clear that up with you guys, because you might be thinking, well, the video we posted earlier today or yesterday, if we go 2 years into the famine, like in Genesis chapter 45, and we start from 24 to 25, that leaves us at 2027. But I don't use that like that, because I do use the 7-year Shemitah, because that is the type and shadow of the agricultural cycle. So you start from 2022, 2023, and go 2 years into that. So I do use that for that cycle, for that pattern. The only other pattern that I was pointing out is to end the 6,000 year pattern, start from the rapture, and then go 7 more years. And it takes you to the end of the 6,000 years from Adam's fall. Okay, see that? And then we also have that picture of 6,000 years, because there were 6 days of creation. A day is as 1,000 years with the Lord, and 1,000 years is as a day with the Lord. And then the 7th day he rested, which is the 7,000th year, or the 1,000 year millennium reign of Jesus Christ on earth. So you see that 7-day pattern again. Then the 8th day, the number 8 being infinity logo, right? The 8th day is like Paul was circumcised on the 8th day.